the South Carolina Football Hall of Fame, it's more than football. It's making a difference through football. Stay tuned for the Inside Blitz with Levon Kirkland.
Well, hey, welcome into the Inside Blitz with Levon Kirkland. I'm your co-host, David Wyatt. Another great show in store for us. And today, Levon, what is on your mind, my brother?
Well, David, my heart is saddened because I lost not only a wonderful teammate, but a wonderful friend in Kevin Greene, Hall of Famer, played with us for 3 years. We actually, with myself, Kevin, Chad, Greg Lloyd, was really the originators of the Blitzburgh defense. And Kevin, if you've ever met him, was a wonderful, wonderful man. He left behind a beautiful wife, Tara, his daughter Gabby, and his son Gavin. And my prayers are out to them. If you ever known anything about Kevin Greene, you would really enjoy him. A great, solid man. Well,
getting to know you over the last couple of years, I have heard you talk about the Blitzburgh defense, yes. And of course Kevin Greene and Chad Brown and Greg Lloyd, and certainly sorry for your loss. I know that that news came in while we were together. And I was watching a little bit of the YouTube. It's so cool. I pulled up the Inside Blitz with Levon Kirkland podcast.
Okay.
My dad came over and showed me how to get YouTube, if you can imagine that, on my sling.
So your dad taught you how to do it?
I mean, my dad.
Your dad is more tech. Your dad has more tech. He's more tech savvy than you.
Well, you know what? I guess that's a good point. But hey, it is what it is.
Yeah.
But I was watching that YouTube, and golly, you look good on that show, by the way. It looks great on the TV.
I appreciate it.
If you hadn't watched it, do it. But and I put in Levon Kirkland, and so after I watched the show, I was like, man, this is great. I was like, I wonder what this is, and I found there was a clip that was out there on TV about you guys and all four of y'all,
right, with
Dick LeBeau. You familiar with that one?
Oh yeah. It's the I think they were really rating the linebacker groups over the years.
Yeah, that's
we
right.
happen to be top 10, number 7.
Number 7, yes. Linebacking core of all time.
All times, man. It was a lot of fun playing with those guys. And, this week I kind of reminisce a whole lot about Kevin and the group. And it was kind of funny because we were going to get together. We did a Zoom call, and all four of us was like, hey, we need to do a dinner and get together, talk about old times and, his untimely pass. And it really goes to show you that you really got to love people right now. You got to make sure you show them their flowers while they're living. And yeah, it was tough, but I have a lot of great memories about Kevin, and that's what's going to carry us.
That's good. Yeah, you're right. The what's going on in this world, and you're not promised tomorrow, and I'm really sorry for your loss. And I did enjoy watching that in others. So tell me about, what was it like playing with Kevin Greene? I mean, that guy, he seemed like just, what did Dick LeBeau call him? The
crazy like a fox.
Crazy like a fox.
Yeah, Kevin was, he presented himself as a wild man. He had the long, flowing blonde hair, but he was a military man. He was a great husband, great father, very disciplined guy. And I went to his house, his garage was like the cleanest garage I ever seen in my entire life. I mean, you can eat a cheeseburger off the floor. I mean, I'm like, oh my goodness. But that's how Kevin was. I mean, his locker was just perfectly neat. He was a very disciplined guy. He really showed me how to watch film. So although he had that long blonde hair and you thought he was a wild man, he was kind of the opposite of that.
That's awesome. Great coaching, and you guys had some great coaching there. Was it Cowart was your coach? Or?
Bill Cowart was my head coach. We had guys like Dick LeBeau, who actually made the Hall of Fame. Him and Bill Cowart was in the Hall of Fame.
Yep.
We had guys like Dom Capers, Marvin Lewis, John Mitchell. We had a great coaching staff, and it goes along to say what the Pittsburgh Steelers, with the Rooneys being the owners, and the GM we had at the time, Tom Donahoe, was really great, and they really assembled a great cast. And I think when you're talking about leadership, you're talking about business, you have to be able to surround yourself with great people.
Well, you've been around a lot of great leaders. I did have the pleasure of meeting both Dan Rooney and his son, both working with the organization, and what a great leadership that was. And of course, prior to that, you had the opportunity to see some folks get ready for some bowl games,
yes.
and that season is amongst us. Let's talk a little bit about bowl game preparation, and this is a sports and leadership show. Yes. So what can you tell us about getting ready for the bowl games?
Well, Danny Ford did an excellent job as far as getting us ready for bowl games. If you look at his record, I mean, it was really Levon Kirkland. He did an impressive job as far as getting us ready for bowl games. And if you look at his record as far as bowl season, he did really well against teams like Oklahoma, Penn State. We played guys like that, and we end up winning those games. And what Danny Ford did was he kind of made it another season. So we went down there maybe 2 weeks ahead of time. We didn't go home for Christmas, so we were down there practicing.
We talked about that last week.
It was like 2 days. It was kind of tough, but I guarantee you we were ready for the game, and normally we came out very successful.
Preparation, as you've talked about many a times on this show, is such a key to success in life. And so what you're telling me is Coach Ford, when it came to preparation.
Yeah, man, Coach Ford was he was very clever, and he did the all shucks, youngsters. But I'm telling you, the man was really smart.
Another
and he knew
crazy
how,
like a fox.
Yeah, crazy like a fox, knew how to prepare us. And I think anytime you're a team or a company, it's all about preparation, going into the, seeing the future and how you're going to prepare for it and getting ready for it. And we were always ready.
Any particular bowl game opponents that come to mind when you think about it?
Yeah, man, for me, it was West Virginia in 1989. They had a guy named Major Harris. And Major Harris was second in Heisman. And everybody was like, how in the world are you going to stop this guy? I mean, everybody was saying that. But we had a tremendous defense, especially our linebacker crew. And after we watched the film,
Who were some of your teammates?
Well, we had guys like Wayne Simmons, rest in peace, Wayne Simmons, Ashley Shepard, John Johnson, and those were just the outside linebackers. Then you had Ed McDaniels, who had a great pro career, Chester McLaughlin, who had a great pro career. We had guys like Preston Buckner. We had an All-American who's about only 6 foot, Rob Bodine. He's a Hall of Famer at Clemson. We had Dexter Davis, Jerome Henderson. Both of those guys played in the NFL.
So y'all were stacked.
We were loaded. We really were. And it was
tell us about that. Major Harris, Man,
Major Harris had a tough time. He had a tough time. His time was so tough that I know a lot of people remember his mother being interviewed by ESPN, and she's like, they need to get my baby out of here. They are killing. They're not protecting him. He needs to leave right now. And it was kind of a fun game because this guy was really one of the best college players during that time.
Great player.
Sorry
about that,
player.
Miss Harris.
Great players, but we did a tremendous job of stopping him. It was a lot of fun, and I saw him later on when I was with the Pittsburgh Steelers. He's from Pittsburgh.
Okay.
And he's like, man, you guys absolutely killed me. And, it was like, hey, man, we were just doing our job, just trying to make things happen. But it was a lot of fun.
That's really fantastic. Yeah. Fantastic. Well, doing our job, it's about time we put our good friend Mikey Football to work. So let's go see what Mikey Football has in store for us today.
As you may know, there are 16 Coastal Carolina players on the Sun Belt All-Conference team, but what you may not know is that there are 11 others from South Carolina on that team. They are Noah Hanna from Greer, Sam Pinckney from Greenwood, DeMarco Jackson from Spartanburg, Rashad Bird from North Augusta, Quay White from Greer, Malik Williams from Chester, Roger Carter from Columbia, Shai Wirtz from Clinton, or Newberry High School, Malik Sumter from Irmo, and Anthony Wilson from Columbia. All these guys are on our Blanchard Rogers Trophy watch list.
Hi, this is Levon Kirkland, and I've gotten to know my co-host David Wyatt pretty well over the years, and I trust him and the Wyatt Law Firm, and you should too. For litigation and business dispute, you want a real quarterback in the courtroom. You need to contact my co-host, David Wyatt, and the Wyatt Law Firm. Find them at seblawfirm.com. Sports, entertainment, and business.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37, 38, 39, 40, 41, 42, 43, 44, 45, 46, 47, 48, 49, 50, 51, 52, 53, 54, 55, 56, 57, 58, 59, 60, 61, 62, 63, 64, 65, 66, 67, 68, 69, 70, 71, 72, 73, 74, 75, 76, 77, 78, 79, 80, 81, 82, 83, 84, 85, 86, 87, 88, 89, 90, 91, 92, 93, 94, 95, 96, 97, 98, 99, 100, 101, 102, 103, 104, 105, 106, 107, 108, 109, 110, 111, 112, 113, 114,
Hey, David, speaking of the Pittsburgh Steelers, man, look at this nice card I got from Greta and Art Rooney II.
Dude, that is awesome.
Yeah.
And that is one of the historic teams, in the game, and they sent you a Christmas card?
Well, I mean, I played there for 9 years, so they should have sent me something. I actually opened it up and did like this.
Hey,
I guess those check days are over with.
Well, I noticed that Mikey Football brought that card into you, and it looked like it might have been a little tampered with. We might need to inspect
I think somebody opened the card first before I looked at it.
Might have put the slip on you.
Yeah, I think they might have took the yellow check that we used to get. They took that out and put the card back in.
I tell you what, those game checks were something nice, weren't they?
The first time I got one, I was like, wow. I know why I play football now. Yes.
Dude, that's awesome. I
Well,
tell you what,
thank you.
speaking of awesome, that is awesome, but this next interview with Coach Dave Roberts, man, what a legend of the game, from South Carolina, and played at Wade Hampton, coached at Notre Dame, coached with Lou Holtz at South Carolina, and just has been a great ambassador.
Oh, yeah.
He helps out so many people, and it's a great interview. So excited to have him
No question about
in
it.
studio with us. I think that's our first season 2 in-studio guest.
Yeah, he was tremendous. I mean, especially some of the recruiting stories he talked about.
Oh, yeah.
They were great.
That's going to be great. So let's go to it. Levon, I mean, what an awesome honor it is to have Coach Roberts with us today.
No question about it. Instead of us going to the Curry PA guest line, our guest is actually here. Coach Roberts, how you doing, my friend?
I'm glad to be here.
Man, glad to have you here.
Glad to be here with legends.
Yeah, legends.
I include both you guys.
You both of us. Thank you, Coach. We really appreciate that. And your check is in the mail. Trust me. So, Coach, we like to talk to some of the greats in South Carolina that's been affiliated with our great state. Now, Coach, tell us a little bit about your football background and who got you into coaching.
Went to Wade Hampton High School.
I coached at Wade Hampton for a while.
I was at Wade Hampton with Mule Lawless and Steve Satterfield when there was first-year school, no practice field, no weights, no anything. Mm-hmm. I went to a small school called Western Carolina in Cullowhee, North Carolina.
Western, yes.
And
what position did you play?
I played linebacker and had a great career, had fun, had a lot of great teammates that have gone on to be really successful people. And then I decided to coach football because I didn't know what I wanted to do. Mm-hmm. So I said I'll coach football. And Ron Autry was the head coach at McCormick High School. And so he said, why don't you come down here and be an assistant? And I said, this will be great.
Right.
So I went to McCormick, and, McCormick's is about the size of this table, and they have one red light. And
you can run your 40 in McCormick?
That's right. You're right. And so I was in McCormick, and being an education major in history, I got a chance to teach biology, which I couldn't spell biology. So that was obviously a problem. So I was in biology and coaching football, and I had a great time because there was nothing to do.
Right.
But coach football and spend time because there was one little trailer, little truck stop, and so I spent 2 years at McCormick, South Carolina. Mm-hmm. And then my biology, I said, I gotta get out of this because I can't have a career in biology because I gotta do better.
Yes.
So I sent out 500 letters to coaches across the country to be a graduate assistant, and I got 2 responses. And Paul Dietzel helped me with one of them, who was the coach at South Carolina, right. And that was at Western Michigan, and the other was Roy Kidd at Eastern Kentucky. Mm-hmm. So Eastern Kentucky was closer, so I decided to go to Eastern Kentucky and be a graduate assistant and try to see if I could get on the college level. And so that's how I got started.
Man, that's amazing, Coach. That really is. I mean, 500 letters, though?
Oh, yeah. Nobody would respond to you because, if you played like yourself at Clemson and had a big name, they would know you.
Right.
When
like
you're,
David Wyatt?
Yes, yeah, like him. When you're at Western Carolina, they don't even know where it's at. So I had to send the letters out, and I said, somebody's going to respond to me, and they did, and it was the right guy at the right time.
Right.
I mean, Roy Kidd was a legend at Eastern Kentucky, and he taught me a lot. I mean, he he was good. And then I had a chance to coach. You guys won't remember, there was a guy named Wally Chambers who was the ninth player picked in the first round, played with the Bears.
Okay.
And I had Wally and Eddie Huffman, and I had great players at Eastern Kentucky. So I thought, hey, this is going to be pretty easy. These guys, they just happen to be really good players.
Right.
So that was a fun experience.
Well, tell us a little bit more. Do you have a story about the game of football that really?
I'll tell you what, Coach Kidd. I'll tell you two great stories. Coach Kidd, my first game, I had Wally Chambers, and we were in the OVC and playing Tennessee Tech. And Wally didn't play very well, and Coach Kidd called me in, and I learned something very fast from him. He said, "Dave, how do you like this college game?" And I said, "I love it." And he said, "Well, you better coach this guy a lot harder or you won't be in it past next week." And I knew right then. And I went to Wally and I said, "Wally, you're going to play a lot better real quick because I'm not going to be here next week if you don't." And that was a tremendous lesson for me because I said, "All right, I got to get it done." And then my first day with Coach Holtz, he assigned me something to do. And he said, "Take your time doing it." And I said, "Okay." And the next morning he asked me if I had it done.
Wow.
And I said, "No." And he said, "Well, if you can't do it, I don't need you here." And I learned two great lessons right then. If somebody says do something, you better go do it right away,
now, yes.
and better have an answer quickly, even if it's the wrong answer. So I learned two great experiences with me stuck home for a long time, and so they were great.
Tell us a little bit about Lou Holtz. I mean, we see him on television, and
he was an amazing, motivating guy. I know one story at Notre Dame. He came in and he said, "We got to put a skid on. The players are too tight, and we're going to do it as coaches." And we did. And so we all dressed up as different things, and I was supposed to bring a knife in and slam it down on the table and yell, "Coach Holtz is crazy," and all that. And he said, "What do you think? Will it work?" I said, "No. This was the worst idea I've ever seen." And I said, "I wouldn't do it, Coach." And so he said, "Well, we're going to do it." So we put it on before we play Southern Cal, and the players are falling out into the Friday night, and they're looking at this, and they're laughing and joking. And I said, he comes up with some of the craziest things that he was
put on a skit.
A skit,
and it worked.
And it worked. It worked. We had a camp where we were at Culver Military, and he had bonfires in the middle of August, and we were going to roast marshmallows with our players. This is Notre Dame now.
Right.
And it was so hot, we all the players slept on the ice rink.
Wow.
They had an ice, and except for him. And we're griping, Lou Holtz, and he said, "I'm up here in the air conditioning watching TV, and you guys sleep on the ice rink." So we have a big old bonfire, Levon, that's about the size of, one story, and they're burning. I said, "Cooking marshmallows. This is 100 degrees." So he comes up, and there's a little lake, and he comes up dressed like George Washington, and has the two captains on a boat, and they're rowing the boat, and I'm sitting there going, "Oh, this is nuts. This is," and I'm one of the coaches. And so he gets out and he stands up and they pull the boat up and throw the boat on the bonfire. Right. And I'm sitting there, this guy's lost his mind. And we're at Notre Dame. He's lost his mind.
Right.
And he said, "We never surrender and we never go backwards."
Right.
And I remember that. I said, what a dang good point that was. He said, "They no turning back now."
They burn the boat.
Burn the boat. And so.
Well, I'll tell you what, Coach. I mean, we're having so much fun talking with you.
Yeah.
We are. You are a great storyteller. So tell us a little bit about Baylor and how that experience was for you.
Baylor was interesting. I was at Notre Dame, and they offered me the job, and it was a very hard time because they hadn't been very successful.
Right.
And the players, when I first got there, told me we weren't going to practice but an hour and a half.
Wow.
Yeah.
The players told you that.
The players told me that, and I said, "Well, you probably ought to transfer because we'll be finished warm-up in an hour and a half." And they didn't have the 3-hour rule then.
Right.
So it was interesting. We sent quite a few players didn't like it and left, and it was fun because the players that stayed weren't very talented, but they were great kids, and I will tell you a funny story.
Okay, tell us.
Okay, we're playing Nebraska, and that the schedule at Baylor, the athletic director wasn't the smartest guy in the world because he had Notre Dame. We had Nebraska, we had Miami, Florida, we had Texas, we had Texas A&M right in a row.
Wow.
And
That's brutal.
so
it's hitting the bus all right there.
Michigan and Nebraska were co-national champions, and we were playing them back to back. Well, Tom Osborne, when I was the head coach at Northeast Louisiana, which was Louisiana Monroe, called me up and said, I've got 2 players from Louisiana. We're over scholarship at Nebraska. Can you take them? We need you to take them and help us immediately. And I said, I'll be glad to take them. So it's great. So they transferred in, and they played well. So we're going out before the game, and they're 7-0, and we're 1 or 2 and whatever. I said, Coach Osborne. And I said, you remember me? He said, not really. And I said, I'm the guy at Louisiana that took 2 of your players that you needed really good help on, and I helped you. And I said, don't forget that at the end of this game. And they were good. Yes. Oh, they were good. I mean, the first play of the game, I think they knocked 10 players down. And we had one guy standing, and the guy runs for 80 yards for a touchdown. But at the end of the game, we scored 3 touchdowns. Right. And made it, it was like 40-something to 28. And after the game, he came over and he said, was that good enough to help you? Wow. And I said, whoo, yeah, that was good enough to help me. And that was a neat Tom Osborne story.
Some hope, man. If Coach Roberts had a few more quarters, he might have taken this game.
Yeah, you never know. Yeah.
But they were good. And but the Baylor experience was, I learned one thing about me, which I felt really good about. I had a athletic director said, you need to fire this coach. And I said, I'm not going to do it. That's not your decision. That's my decision. So if you want to get rid of, you need to get rid of all of us because you're not going to come in and listen to somebody who gives you a little bit of money. And so that was a great experience that I learned, that you have to stand up for what you believe in. Right. Even if you think you're right, you got to stay with it, and and it turned out good. Baylor was a fun experience, but when he said that, I knew that it wasn't going to be a fit for me.
You came to South Carolina. Y'all did recruit some incredible players there. What was the key to that?
Well, it's what I believe in. South Carolina football is really great, right, but a lot of it is rural football. So I can remember the story, and I would tell this to Coach Holtz. I said there was a player from St. Stephen, South Carolina, named Lance Legree. Right. And Lance had been offered by Presbyterian when I was at Notre Dame. And I went down and watched him play basketball, and I said, God, this guy can play at Notre Dame. And I told Coach Holtz, he said, who's recruiting him? I said, Presbyterian. I think we can beat them. and he said, are you kidding? I said, no. And we took him, and he spent 9 years with the Giants. And once Notre Dame offered him, of course, there's so many good players in South Carolina that are rural or not, that get left out. So when we got to South Carolina, we went 0-11 the first year. And Coach Holtz said, what do we do? I said, take South Carolina and do 2 things. Take the number 2s, and because you're not going to get the number 1s, they're not coming, but take the number 2s from small places and develop them. And then let's go to the coaches, and let's help the coaches. If somebody doesn't qualify, let's help them place these players in junior colleges, and we probably placed 70 out all over the country. And I said, they'll remember that when you get good enough to help you, because right now, I mean, you're not. And so we took a lot of number 2s that were really good players. Right. I mean, they just weren't big enough and played at maybe small schools. And then in turn, we just developed toughness and said, okay, let's go play and let's go coach. And, I think South Carolina football is a lot like Louisiana football. Right. There are a lot of good players, I told Coach Muschamp, he was laughing at me, and he said, what would you do in recruiting? I said, I'd go find out who Appalachian's recruiting, because they beat you last year, and they got 7 starters from South Carolina.
Right.
And I go find out who they're recruiting, because they know how to develop them somehow. And I mean, they're really good players. So, you don't get caught up in the 5-star and 4-star. You got to take what you think and develop them. And when you do that, you can win.
Right.
You can win at South Carolina, but you got to be patient. You got to take time to develop it.
Now, I'm a little biased. Was John Abraham amongst one of those guys that you guys recruited?
Yeah. John Abraham came in, and he was coming off the edge, and I said, this guy's really good. But we had a Trey Pennington, who's here in town, was a tight end that played at West Side, and he was 6'4", about 220, and those are the kind of kids I think when we first got there we should recruit, because they love South Carolina, they're from South Carolina, and they'll play hard for South Carolina. And you may recruit a star like Levon Kirkland, but he's not going to come when you're 0-11. But if you're 7-4 or 8-4, you may have a chance. Right. And so that's how we did it. But South Carolina football is incredible.
Right. Well, Coach, I was one of those guys, Dale.
I know you were way back when.
And,
I know.
All that happened. And...
Coach Ford's told me your stories a bunch. But there's people like you.
Yeah,
I mean, maybe not quite as talented, but there's people in this state that need opportunities, whether they go to smaller schools or they go to Clemson in South Carolina. And like I had a great career at Western Carolina. It was great. And I enjoyed it and had fun. And I said, you don't have to always play at Clemson or South Carolina. You can go to Wofford. I mean, what a great school, or Furman. And
all good.
South Carolina State. And so, there's opportunities. You just have to find your niche and be happy where you are.
Now, Coach, I know we have a little bit of an NFL connection with the Steelers.
I got to tell you a couple great stories with the Steelers.
I love great stories. I love great stories.
This is really cool. I'm a coach at South Carolina, and one of the Rooneys, I think Rooney the third,
is it Dan or Art?
The son. It was a son, so they put him in Charlotte, and they said, "You go be a scout." And so I'm in charge of the pro scouts at South Carolina. So he comes in and says, I don't know what I'm doing. And I said, let me help you. He said, you're going to own this team someday or be part of it. And so I took a lot of time with him, and this is how I feel about the Steelers. And so I had a friend here in town named Gordon Gibson who played at South Carolina and played with me at Wade Hampton. Son was getting married in Pittsburgh, and he called me and said, we don't have anything to do. And I said, okay, let me make a call to Mr. Rooney. And I said, hey, I need a favor returned. And he said, you name it. I said, I got a wedding coming to Pittsburgh. Can they come over on Friday and tour the facility, and you be there and take care of them? And we had a wedding party, come over to the Steelers facility, and so that was a highlight. Forget the wedding. They had a great time. The Steelers were just opened it up and were great. And this summer, one of my first person that I ever offered a job to when I was the head coach at Western Kentucky was a receiver coach named Daryl Drake.
Okay, yeah, Drake.
And Daryl coached with me at Western Kentucky and then Baylor. Then he went to Texas and the Bears.
Coach, I coached with Drake with the Arizona Cardinals.
Well,
so I know Drake very well.
So Coach Drake passed away.
Yeah, he did.
And so we all go up to outside of Nashville and see his wife and the kids, and all those players come in, and you just wonder what kind of mark you make on somebody. And Coach Drake was, about 6 months before he passed, he called me up and he said, and you don't hear from these guys. Right. So I just want to thank you for everything you did. And I said, what did I do for you? And what a great coach and what a great guy. Really and that was cool. But the Steelers.
Any players? You ever coach any of their players?
Well, we had at Northeast Louisiana. I took John David Crow's spot, who won the Heisman Trophy for Coach Bryant, and then Pat Collins, and there was quarterbacks named Bubby Brister, and Stan Humphrey, who played for the Chargers, Doug Peterson, the head coach of the Eagles.
Right.
I can remember when Doug was playing, he said, "Are you going to throw it?" And I said, "Well, I don't know." And he said, I came somewhere to throw it. In our first game, we threw 71 passes for 600 yards. I said, "What do you think about that, Doug? How's your arm feeling?" And so Bubby and Stan and all the quarterbacks, plus the Louisiana Tech quarterbacks, would come back in the summers at noon. And they would throw, and so you'd be out there. You'd be out there with, Bradshaw would show up on an occasion and work with some people, and all these little school quarterbacks were showing up, and they were throwing. And I said, you don't have to worry about getting your receivers to run routes. Just come out there and let them. Bubby'd throw a 190-pound hour fastball, and Humphreys, he was big as a house, and so. That was a fun thing, but the Steelers, when you were there, you knocked everybody out.
I tried to, Coach.
You knocked everybody out.
It was my job. It was my job.
You knocked everybody out. I mean, it was funny. I mean, it was the Steelers. What a great organization.
No question.
Let me ask you about this, that Steelers. But you just mentioned Doug Peterson, and you coached Peterson. Obviously, taught him some good things. Have you seen him since they won the Super Bowl?
My son, I coached him and his brother.
Okay.
And his brother was a heck of a tight end. But my son went up to the Alabama clinic. My son's a high school coach in Slidell, and they had Doug at the clinic. And Doug's son plays for Louisiana Monroe now.
Oh, okay.
He's going to be a player.
Oh, really?
Wow.
Yeah, and so they have us coming back to help them raise money, for some of the small schools, and we talked to him because Deuce Staley's also up there.
That's right.
On the staff with the Eagles, and so
Coach Deuce as well.
Deuce, and then before they left, David Culley. I don't know if you remember.
I remember David Culley.
David Culley was another first. I hired David Culley when I was the head coach at Western Kentucky.
Wow.
And he's with the Ravens now. And he'd been with Andy Reid for about 15 years. Was with Philadelphia. So there was a connection there that's really cool. So I'm so happy. I'm so happy for Doug when he won the Super Bowl. That's incredible. But as you know, in the NFL, it's what have you done for me lately?
Yes. Coach, it was a wonderful opportunity to be sitting beside you. Thank you so much for this interview. One of our first live interviews in our second season.
Yep.
So we really honor you. Thank you so much. And everything you do for the South Carolina Football Hall of Fame is a plus for us. You can come back anytime.
Thank you.
This week's podcast is brought to you by Parham Smith and Archenhold.
Well, I tell you what, Levon Kirkland, This is our quick hits segment. A little bit different because we're not acting today, but we're bringing in somebody who's been with our organization for a long time, Errol Thomas.
Thank you for being a part of our show. Now tell us.
No problem.
Could you tell us?
I'm like your shirt. I'm encouraged.
You're encouraged. You like that, huh? Well, for a small fee, you can have one of these shirts also.
Oh yeah. Hey, I like to encourage, educate, and is it empower?
Yes.
Man, yeah, I like that.
Well, thank you very much. We appreciate it. Now, tell us a little bit more about Choices, please.
Well, like I say, actually, it goes way back to Clemson, and Dr. Barbara Kennedy Dixon was one of my first mentors. And so once she mentored me, she allowed me to mentor some names that I could say that you probably know, but I won't, name people. But the fact is, it really hooked in my spirit, and so I began to do that, married my wife. And in about 98 or so, when we really got together, my wife and I, she said, I see that that's your passion, so let's get a name, let's get it registered, et cetera. So about 98 or so, then 2003, we got it registered with the Secretary of State. And so the bottom line is so many people like Dr. Barbara Kennedy Dixon had helped me that I felt the very least that I should do is do the same for others. And that was really the birth and the, as I like to say, the spirit of Choices.
Can you tell us some of the services that you guys provide?
The acronym spells a bad word, but it's AASS, but it's academic, athletic, social, and spiritual balance. See, and so my goal was to make sure people had mentors, that good kids had mentors and tutors to become great. And so that really was my motivation, because I really lacked no guidance or I didn't need anything. There were so many people there for me that I just figured we needed to try to do the same for others.
Thank you so much for providing us the information about choices. We know how to get in contact with you. I mean, it's a great program. Thank you so much for providing it for our students. And, we'll talk about the shirt. We'll get you one. We'll hook you up, all right?
Sounds good.
All right, thank you. All right, thank you so much.
Thank you, guys.
That's awesome. Errol Thomas with choices, and as he said, part of the South Carolina Football Hall of Fame family.
Everyone wants to be a part of something bigger.
But not everyone will.
Everyone has goals, but not everyone knows where to start. We
Are not everyone.
are not everyone.
Are not everyone.
Are not everyone.
We'll see you next time on the Inside Blitz with Levon Kirkland.